here we're looking at race prices today, and we're going to try and break race prices down. We're going in blind. Because I haven't been signing up for races this year. I don't know how much races are really costing. I know roughly, but we're going to look at different races on the spot. We're just going to spout them out, look them up on the internet, and then we're going to plug them into a calculation that you came up with, and we're going to standardize race prices and see where the industry is at, and then we're going to compare it, to some other things, other races, maybe other races around the world, and talk about race prices, talk about ultra sign up, run sign up, their place in race pricing and how they impact it, and then chat a little bit about LAS and take some user calls. So let's open this up. Where do you think we have this like wide swath of stuff that we could talk about? What's our starting line? Where should we start here?
Yeah, I think we always hear the hockey stick growth rate for the amount of participants in the sport. And I think what, probably everybody's a little bit shy who's, got some business ties to the sport growth is how much the cost of entry fees are also growing on the hockey stick scale.
Yeah.
At least the ones that, I've got visibility to. So Aravaipa being in my backyard, that's kind of the race schedule and fees that I'm more familiar with, but I still look and see kind of what your major races are costing, like Western States, UTMB. And so that's what we started kind of riffing on, and then comparing it really to a more established entry fee schedule, which is the road marathoning scene, right? They've got their 7 majors, they've got your local feeder marathon races. And so it's more well established. I think the, cost per mile breakdown for a road marathon, and just kind of comparing that to where we're at right now in ultra.
Yeah. Okay. So like the higher up level from this and looking at race prices is, there's a subset of people who look at this and say, hey, why do you even need a race to run 100 miles? Like, why don't you just go run 100 miles? Well, for me, it's, I love the community. I love being out in it. It's the almost the exclusive time that I run with somebody, because I run alone so much. And I like that. I like that rhythm of train alone, race together. That's really energizing to me. I love getting out and seeing the community. It's also why I'm not super connected to my Salt Lake community, because I don't go on the group runs that often or ever. So then I feel connected on the race level. But because so many people are that way, they're running with groups and then they enjoy the race. Races are in this interesting place where, sure, there's inflation, costs are rising. But I think what we're going to see here and be shocked by is just how much races have gone up. And I think if you look at Ironman, their history and how much prices have gone up there, that races know, and I'm a race director of a small race, there's a high willingness to pay. But I think also what I'm going to enjoy seeing is my cost per mile, which I'm going to break that down here in just a second. That was your idea. Cost per mile in my race, we tried to keep it low because we're trying to get first-time trail runners and racers from downtown Salt Lake City and surrounding neighborhoods to race for the first time. So we're trying to keep prices low. Race directors have a captive audience. What are you going to do? If you want to run Javalina, if you want to run Eastern States, No Business 100, any iconic race around America, they know they've got your attention, and that within reason, they're selling out. They know that price can keep going up and up and up. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. That's just an observation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, as we get to dive into it, I think, I pick on Javelina a lot because, again, it's a race it's in my backyard, but it's also got a lot of valid reasons to be picked on. There's a lot of loose threads that are easy to pull on. And once you pull on one, you know how it goes, right? The whole sweater gets deconstructed. So, right now I looked at it, the New Year's, when the entry fees or the entry list sign up went live, right? So like everybody jumped in right at New Year's to get their spot without having to jump on the wait list. And I walked through the checkout, and it was like $615 after taxes and the ultra sign up fee and one parking spot. So if I wanted to pay to have a more preferred parking and be able to camp in my car, that was an extra $65. So I think the race itself worked out to be like $540 or 500, something in that range, right? 525, 540, 615 out the door just to sign up and park your car.
I mean, that's insane. Only in as much as we know what those prices were 4 years ago, 6 years
Right.
ago. So
Right.
demand's going up again. Good. That's great. All right. What race do we want to choose as our standard bearer? What's our
I think,
first race? And so So what we're going to do is we've said it a few times, but cost per mile. Brian sent this to me in a text like, hey, there was a race one time we were talking about, and I was like, hey, check out the price of this race. And you did the math, like, look, that's, $5 per mile. I thought, oh my God, that's a great way to standardize how
right.
we're thinking about race costs. So what we're just establishing is how much does it cost per mile to run this race when it purely based on registration fee, not travel, not camping, all of that. So what's like the average American race to you? I might say Wasatch feels like average American, not new American, maybe because it's been around, but I don't know. What do you think should be our standard bearer?
Yep. Yeah. I think everybody within their region is going to have one that I think resonates with them.
Yeah.
Is kind of what their, what do you want to call it? Like middle class as far as like, visibility
Yeah.
and attendance would be. So like in California, something like AC 100, or even that might be too niche, maybe like San Diego 100. Those are SoCal races that are pretty big deals and regionally important. And so then,
Let's
yeah,
do that.
and then you get
I
into,
like the way you're thinking about that, like that sort of like middle class reference. Let me look up San
right.
Diego 100. It also allows us to give a shout out to some new races because
Yeah,
we always
exactly.
do the same ones. Register 381.57. Okay, important to note that Ultra sign up is now required to post the price you will see at checkout, which as a consumer I love, as a race director I don't, but that includes taxes and fees. So 381.57
Is out the
for a
door.
100 miler. What's that?
That's out the door.
Out the door. That's
Okay.
all things included.
Gotcha.
381.57 divided by 100. I should be able to do that in my head. I'm sorry. You don't ever do math in front of people. Okay.
Right.
$3.81. That's our standard bearer.
Right.
I feel like that's pretty good for our
Yeah.
purposes here. 381.75. Okay. So you already talked about Javelina, and you
Yeah.
said
But you have,
540.
yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, I guess take the 615 minus like $65 that I put in there for the parking, and then that would be your fees out the door, basically,
Okay. So
roughly.
550.
Yeah.
All right. So you got 381 versus 550. Okay. So now we have probably our most expensive and a good middle of the road. Okay. So I think I'm curious about my race. Like I've never really totally thought about it. So Salt Lake Foothills 50K. I need to see what they're saying it is out the door right now for the 50K. Salt Lake Foothills Trail Race. And out the door right now for the 50K is 123.99. No, yeah, 123.99. 123.99 divided by 32. Oh, okay, 387. I'm 387. So if San Diego's 381, for now we're going to call this like middle class pricing. Like
Right.
my race is like for the middle class.
There you go.
All right, what else? Who else? This is fun. Let's build up some information here.
Yeah. So we can also compare kind of where does the 50K range price out at for, maybe like, what do you got? You got, in my area for Aravaipa, maybe something like Crown King, which is coming up. I don't know if registration will still be open for that.
Crown King Scramble.
Right.
Okay. 242 for a 50K. So 242 divided by 32. No. 756 per mile.
There you go, man. So it actually, it's actually,
No.
that's what I'm saying is there's nothing standardized yet in the sport because
Yes,
obviously
you're right.
everything's growing at such a rapid pace that nothing's really normalized yet. It's just, get what you can, right? And then if you start to see the entrance dwindle year over year, then you might think you got a price problem, right? But like when you contrast it to road marathoning, where it's been decades and more well established, you've got the the 7 majors, I think, that set the premium price standard. And then you've got regional races that obviously are going to have to price themselves below that, is
Yeah.
my understanding of how that works. And, I'm
Gosh.
sure that like you probably don't see like, you know, half marathons pricing out per mile more than, the full marathon distance at other places.
Yeah. Okay. Crown King is currently the winner of the highest cost per
Right.
mile.
I mean,
Kudos
so
to them.
when you look European, then you've got to think about like, what are these like Sierras and all races or UTMB. I think we looked up UTMB before we got on, and it was shockingly affordable for all of
Yeah.
its criticisms.
UTMB, 439 euros. I mean, $4.39. So this
Well,
is this is shocking to me.
right.
Is that UTMB, the big bad evil UTMB, 439 per mile, whereas Javelina was up there in the sixes, and then Crown King is in the sevens. I will say that, part of the knock on UTMB is that they're going to make everything more expensive, and they're going to corporatize so much stuff, and that's going to be reflected in the price. Now it's expensive to get to UTMB, but for people in Europe who I've talked to who aspire to run Javelina, it's the same, just going the other direction. That UTMB is closer to middle class pricing of our baseline of this 350. So that is really shocking, because I think UTMB could and should get increase that price
Oh, absolutely.
for Americans at least.
Right. Because if we're following this comparison and contrast to road marathoning, obviously the Paris Marathon is going to have a course that's going to be beautiful, right? I mean, it's located in an area that's going to be gorgeous to run the streets through, right? And so like
Yeah,
Mont Blanc is the equivalent of that. Essentially, you're running, you're circumnavigating this mountain, right? And this peak.
stunning. Yeah,
I mean, it's not lost in the nuance that you're going through 3 countries, right? I mean, just the whole
yeah,
explanation of what you're doing is very adventurous and life
yeah,
defining, right? Contrast that
absolutely.
to Javelina, right? For all of its fun and
Yeah,
whimsical, costumes and contrived little things that they do to make it a lively atmosphere, like Burning Man in the desert meets an ultra, right? It's still just 5 loops in a basic flat park. And so for it to be priced out more per mile than what we just explained UTMB represents, again, just it's kind of fascinating to see that's where we're at in the sport right now.
yeah. I mean, and again, we're not idiots. Like, there's a supply and demand thing happening here. They're charging that because they're getting it. My point is not so much that maybe that's my point. If from a pricing standpoint, if we're not going to beat up on Jamil for his high prices, we're going to be in awe. We're going to kind of laugh and chuckle him, but he's getting that. Then we shouldn't beat up UTMB. Like, I just feel like there's a intellectual dishonesty to the amount of shitting on UTMB that happens.
Yeah.
And this is just one data point of many. I know we can talk about a bunch of different streams of like, okay, how do they treat their employees, and what's company culture like, and how do they treat the mom and pop races around them? Those are different streams, but pricing is considerably more reasonable than Aravaipa. And so what I'm saying is, let's not start shitting on Aravaipa. Let's actually shit less on UTMB.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's the best perspective to carry.